That's bad.
All right, we're over here at Pops' shop working on the Dime a Dozen S10. Was having, a little bit of fun messing with the tune on this thing yesterday, but I think the plugs in this thing might be junk. I also think I ran it out of gas again, which is what happens when you don't have a fuel gauge and you only put 3 gallons in at a time. But yeah, I'm pretty sure these are the stock plugs that came with the 6.0 that was originally in this thing. So I think these are probably pretty junk, so I'm going to pull those out and check it out. Because looking at the data logs, it almost has like a slight mist to it, a little bit. But looking at the data logs, the air fuel is pretty darn close. Just reading the narrow bands, like you can tell kind of by watching that roughly what it is. Obviously a wide band's better, but you can get the gist of things by looking at narrow bands. So yeah, I'm going to check the plugs because I'm pretty sure these are just the stock plugs that came with the old motor, and they're probably junk. I've got some basically brand new, I think they're TR6s in the 5.3 in the Buick there. So I'll probably end up pulling those out, putting them in this, and hopefully that fixes our issue. Also, I could not help myself. I ordered some lowering blocks for the back of this thing. We're going to try and just make this thing look a little bit better. I got some 4-inch drop blocks for the back, which are supposed to clear without having to notch anything. We'll probably have to like trim the bump stops or something. And on the front, we're probably just going to cut a coil or two off the spring. Keep it, budget friendly. It's not like this thing's an all-out performance truck. Although I did have the thought last night, when I was frustrated about the tune in this, I did have the thought last night of, what if we put the big block in this? Just rip the LS out of it, drop the 454 in here. It would bolt right up to the Power Glide. This converter should work. If not, I've got another one that I know will work. The rear end will probably be unhappy, but I think the big block with its real low end torque would be much happier with the tall, like the towering gears that are in this thing. Because Power Glide's first gear, I think this one's 182. The rear end on this thing, I've never had the diff cover off, but it feels like a 273 or a 323 or something really tall. This thing is doggy as hell out of the hole. So I was thinking, maybe toss the big block in here. That'd be cool. And it would still be along the budget-friendly theme since I got the big block for free. Actually, right now, got the motorhome for free, pulled the big block and Turbo 400 out of it. If I had the shifter, I'd probably put the Turbo 400 in here with it. But got that all for free, sold the tires, have a buddy who is interested in the rear end. So that could, just a thought. But I watched some videos on that last night, and I know that I would absolutely have to make a set of headers or deeply modify a set for this. But it would be so gangster with some like turbo headers and then just do the exhaust down here into little bull horns. That'd be fucking sweet. And realistically, the big block probably makes about the same horsepower as the 5.3 here, both in the neighborhood of like 350 at the crank. But the big block probably makes 450 foot-pounds of torque. So that it's something I was thinking about. I'm not saying I'm going to do it. This thing's running and driving, so I'll most likely just leave it alone and try to fix a little bugs in it here and there. But it's something I was thinking about, and it would be a lot of fun. So like I said, I'm going to pull the plugs out, check them real quick. Most likely they'll be turds, and we'll rob the good plugs out of the Skylark there, which the paint for that showed up yesterday. So hopefully in the next couple days we'll get started on that. Gonna have to sand it with like 60 grit and knock all this stuff off of it. Get this thing sprayed. Yeah, I still have no idea what this is. But finally decided on a color. I was torn between, let's see, green, gold, red, black. And there's one that I just kept going back to, and I felt like it fit the theme of the car the most. Death Row Skylark, because this thing was scrapped. But anyway, before we get distracted again, let's get back to work on this thing. All right, got all the plugs out. They're not as bad as I thought they were going to be. There's a couple that are obviously super fouled. And there's one over here that is completely closed. So, more or less 7 cylinders. So, I'm going to rob the plugs out of the Skylark, toss them in here. Might have to go get a couple gallons of gas, throw in this thing, and then we'll fire it up, see how she's doing. I think that they fouled from before I put the oxygen sensors in, because we ran it for a little bit without O2 sensors, and I mean, obviously it was pig rich. Again, obviously it was pig rich, and it started to clean itself up a little bit, but I think that it was just running so bad from that initial fire up that it couldn't really fix itself, couldn't really clean the plugs. Fingers crossed, some fresh plugs and some fresh gas, and this thing feels like a whole new truck. Brand new TR6s. Already got the driver's side tossed in this truck. Let's get the passenger side. Plugs are in, header's back on. Yeah, this one, you gotta pull the header off a little bit. Just leave that last bolt in and get to it. Not too bad, kind of inconvenient, but S10s are inconvenient, so let's there's an actual gas can around here somewhere. Alright, plugs are in. We got about 5 gallons in there now, so let's see how we do. Alright, make sure this thing's in park. Alright, so yeah, that felt a lot better. Still push through the brakes, which is annoying, but I do have a lot of weight in the back right now. I've got the old wheels and tires off the Skylark, 2 extra rims, and something else. I know the battery's back there too. So yeah, there's probably like a good 200 pounds in the back that isn't really helping our cause, but is what it is. I don't feel like taking it out right now, so I'm gonna take the light down and take this thing down the road, see how it feels. So just got back from that little test drive. Ran pretty good, a lot better than it has, but I think this thing's just got way too tall of gears for this naturally aspirated little 325. 410s and a Turbo 400 would do wonders for this thing, but I don't have a shifter for a Turbo 400. So I think if we were to keep using the Power Glide, I think this thing would want like 456s, to be honest, because it's got a decent sized tire on the back. But this like 1.8 first gear and then 323s, somewhere in that range, it's just way too tall for this thing. It doesn't have the grunt to get it there. Yeah, I think this thing just really needs gears. And the tires balance. These tires are horrible. Alright, got the truck up on the hoist. I'm going to pull this diff cover off and finally see what's in here. When you do this, leave the top bolt in just loose, that way you don't drop the cover and splash yourself. Yeah, this thing hasn't been off in decades. Probably never been off, actually. Had to get a hammer involved. Well, there's at least fluid in it, so it's already not the worst I've ever seen. Got them all counted, even though, just to double check, always counted them, even though this one has them stamped. 12 for the pinion, 41 for the ring gear, so that's 342s, which is lower than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to have like 323s, 273s, something like that. But that's still a lot of ratio to overcome, especially with an open diff. So, got to get that welded up. Probably just cut out a little plate to go in there and weld the corners and then weld the plate. Although, honestly, just welding the corners should be fine. Tinfoil over the ring gear, call it a day. Might be able to do that with a stick welder, to be honest. Do that while we're here before putting it back together. This thing, 456s would be money. So 342 gears and a 182 first gear in the Power Glide puts our starting line ratio like around 6.2, which is not ideal. When you look at the chart, like a rough estimate chart on where you should start, like a good starting point for a track surface, vehicle 3,000 pounds like this is with driver, and real close to the engine stroke that the LS has, that recommends a starting line ratio of about 10.4, I think it was, 10 something, like mid-10s. So we are way off base. Now, to get closer to that, obviously we'd have to put a bigger numerical gear, or a lower gear in it, which, like I said, 410s, 456s would get us closer. Let me do the math real quick. 182 first gear times, let's say, 410, that still puts us at a 7.4 starting line ratio. Now, if we go 182 times 456, around 8.3. So, if we go all the way to 5.6, that gets us to 10.1 starting line ratio. So, Power Glide for this truck, naturally aspirated, not the best situation. I think if we could get closer to like a 9 to 9.5 starting line ratio, this thing would be fine. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a little NA 5.3, and obviously there's a ton of other factors. I think like 456s would be about as high as I'd really want to go in this thing. And I think a looser converter. I have one other converter on the shelf that should be looser than this thing, hopefully. And we'll give that a try. So I think we'll probably wrap things up here. Probably get the rear end welded up. And might see about tossing some gears in this thing, because I don't think this thing's going to make enough power to worry about really hurting the 10 bolt here. It should be okay. So that is going to do it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing, clicking that bell to get the notifications. I'll see you next time.